Hello everyone and welcome to Metro Matters. I'm Mary Sitt. Imagine taking all of our bus routes and erasing them, then designing them from scratch. What would our transit system look like? We're in the process of examining this closely and have just launched an 18-month project called Transit System Reimagining. It's headed up by our guest today, Metro board member Christophe Spieler, who was a transit advocate, expert, and user way before he became a Metro board member. Christophe is Director of Planning at Morris Architects. He's a licensed professional engineer and his projects have won multiple awards from the American Institute of Architects. Thanks so much for being with us, Christophe.
Very happy to be here.
Tell us, what is this project?
So we are literally taking a blank sheet look at our entire route system. We are taking for granted where we have capital facilities. We know where we have transit centers. We're taking for granted our financial resources. We know how much money we have. And we're taking for granted where people live and where people work and where people want to go. But if you look at our route system, it's evolved in little bits and pieces over time. And what we're asking is, if we start from scratch, what would that system look like? And the goal is to come up with a system that's a lot easier to use, that will benefit more people, that will carry more people.
Christophe, what does good transit look like and feel like?
Well, good transit is freedom. Okay. Good transit is something that lets you do what you want to do when you want to do it, so that you don't have to plan your life around transit. And you think of something like the rail line. I ride the rail line daily. It comes frequently. It goes to a bunch of important destinations. And so what I can do in my day is I can just easily get where I want to go when I want to go there. I walk up to the station at any time. I know within 6 minutes there'll be a train, and those stations are exactly at the destinations I want to get to. That's what all transit should be like.
Okay, that's the rail. What about our buses?
Well, buses can be the same thing. You can have a bus route like the Westheimer that runs really frequently, that connects to downtown, that connects to uptown, that goes through neighborhoods where a lot of people live. That's really convenient. Once again, you don't have to look at a schedule. You just walk out there, you get on the bus. I'd like more of our system to be like that. And a lot of our system, if you look at it today, is fairly infrequent. The routes are indirect. They're hard to understand. It's a difficult system to use, and we want to make it a lot more easier to use. We want to make people's everyday lives better.
Christophe, why are we doing this project now?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. First of all, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, we did this long-range planning exercise called Metro Vision, and we did public meetings all over the region. And the public asked for improvements, and the majority of the things they asked for actually focused on our bus system. So we took a step back and said, we have to look at this differently. I think there's a couple other things too. One is, we really need to define what our goals are, which sounds like a really simple thing to say, but we don't actually have an agency policy as to what our goal is with our transit system. Are we trying to cover as much area as possible? Are we trying to carry as many people as possible? What's our goal? So we need to set our goals. We also know that the region keeps changing. There's this amazing map we just saw in the committee meeting today. If you look at where people lived in 1990, where they lived in 2000, where they lived in 2010, and there's these whole areas of density, especially out towards the west, where you're seeing these very high levels of population density that just didn't exist before. And our route system hasn't adapted to that. And now that we're about to open new light rail lines, those are really an opportunity to rethink the system. Right now we have, north side for example, a bunch of routes running parallel to where the rail line will be. That doesn't make sense anymore when you have this high capacity, high speed, high frequency spine in the middle. What you want is you want all those routes to tie in. What's really notable, and I think what really hammers home why we need to do this, is you look at our system ridership and there's been a 20% drop since the peak in ridership. So over the past decade, we have lost significant amount of riders. And you see at the recession, when the recession started, we lost a lot of riders. And when the economy came back, we didn't get them back. And you look at other cities and we're underperforming our peers.
Why do you think that is?
We operate really effectively.
Right.
It's amazing. Our cost to operate, our performance, the guys running our buses, the guys maintaining our buses, they're the best in the industry. But our route structure doesn't make sense.
Won't it cost more money if we do more frequent service?
We know how much money we have. We know how many buses we have. We know how many operating hours we can put on the road. The question is, how can we put those service hours in the places where they do the most good? So for example, you might have a neighborhood that has 5 bus routes today, but they're all infrequent. So they're all hard to use. None of them get you to where you want to go quickly. And instead, maybe that neighborhood needs 2 bus routes that are more direct and more frequent. So what we're saying is, it's not about taking away service, it's about transforming the service that we have. As the new light rail lines open, we don't need to run buses on those streets. We can actually move those buses elsewhere in the system, but we need to know where to move them.
So this project is going to involve your transit experts, people who teach about this in universities, plus regular Joe on the street. Is that right? You want input from the public too? We
have an amazing process set up here. We have a really good consultant team. It includes local firms, actually headed by a local small business Houston-based firm, but they also have Jarrett Walker, who's a national expert on this. He writes a blog called Human Transit. He's written the book on, literally written the book on how to redesign transit systems. But the way we're working this process is we're starting with public input. This isn't something where we're developing a plan inside this building and then rolling it out. So it's going to be a very interactive process. And there's also going to be a significant public outreach process so that we have public meetings before we adopt goals. We have public meetings before we adopt the system.
So regular citizens can contribute and say, hey, what about this? What about that? I would like this.
I mean, my theory is, I believe this very strongly, that the people who understand a neighborhood best are the people who live there. The people who understand an employment center best are the people who work there. And we need their knowledge to be able to pull this off.
Okay, we need to take a little break right now, but we'll be right back with more from Metro Board member Christophe Spieler, and we'll find out exactly what we need to make these important changes to give Houston the best regional transit. Stay with us.
Morning, Bob.
Good morning.
Hey, Abuelita. Hey, kids.
Beautiful day, isn't it? But wait, where's Lucille?
She still thinks driving to the zoo is faster than taking Metro Rail.
Forget about it. We told her Metro Rail is the fastest way to get to work without worrying about traffic or parking.
She is a bit flighty.
Avoid the stampede. Take Metro Rail to the Houston Zoo.
It's a beautiful day for soccer here at Robertson Stadium. The grass is green, the crowd is wild, and the Dynamo are tied. Oduro passes to Kamara. He shoots. Oh, no! Wow, someone get her an agent. That is some abuelita.
Choose your route in life. Ride Metro.
We're back with Christophe Spieler, Metro Board member and engineer who has studied travel extensively. Christophe heads up our newly launched Transit System Reimagining project. Christophe, tell us what this is not about, and then tell us what it is about, because you said some people are sort of confused.
But it's not a long-term plan. 25 years from now is great, but I want to talk about 5 years from now. Secondly, it's not about major capital projects. This is not about whether we build a rail line to the airport. This is about our current resources, and it's really focused in a lot of ways on our local bus system.
And it's more than just tweaking routes, it's actually redoing them, right?
The question we're asking is, if you had a blank sheet of paper, what system would you design? Now, in the end, we may find that that system has a lot of similarities to our current system. So when it actually comes to rolling this out, we don't know yet how radical a change there will be. But what we've said is we are open to radical change.
How much weight will that special stakeholder committee have, and how much weight will the public have?
They'll have a lot of weight, because without them, we can't pull this off. I mean, this is one of the nature, if you look at how Metro has tried to change routes in the past, the problem is, if you come up with a plan like this inside the agency and then try to roll it out, you get a lot of political pushback. The reality is, the people who are disadvantaged by whatever change you make, and there will always be somebody, they are the ones who will turn out. So there is no way we can change the system unless we have community buy-in. There is no way we can do this unless the plan actually came from the community rather than came from the agency. If it's an agency plan, it's not going to work.
How can we make transit easier to understand the system?
Well, I mean, I'll give you the really simple one. What is a perfect bus route? A perfect bus route is pretty close to a straight line. It's something that people can understand. When I say the Westheimer bus, that bus runs to full length of Westheimer. That's really to understand. You don't need a map when I say it's the Westheimer bus. So it's really easy to understand. It connects to major destinations, and Westheimer is another example. It connects to downtown, it connects to uptown, it serves a lot of neighborhoods that people want to go to. So it goes where people want to go, and it goes right to the middle of where people want to go. That's really important. And then finally, it's frequent. Frequency is everything. Jarrett Walker actually had a really good analogy. It's like, why does frequency matter? Imagine you had a garage with a gate in front of it. and the gate only opened every 30 minutes, and you wanted to get places faster, what would you do? You wouldn't buy a sports car. That wouldn't actually help. You'd make the gate open more often. The key is you want to have routes where you don't need to look at the schedule, where you know that if you just walk up to the stop in a reasonable amount of time, a bus will come along.
Okay, and this whole reimagining plan will help address those two issues, frequency and
I would imagine that we are going to end up with more bus routes that meet those criteria. But once again, that's where the stakeholders come in. We want to hear what the goals are, and we're going to plan routes that meet those goals. These goals will have metrics attached.
How can we keep from redoing the old routes? You know, there might be some people out there saying, well, let's do what we had in 1992 or something. Can you address that?
There's a part of this which makes all of us open our minds. Because some people are saying exactly that. They're saying, in 1994, you discontinued route number 72.5. I want that route back. This isn't the same region it was in 1994. It's unlikely that what made sense in 1994 makes sense today. And on top of that, the reason that route was discontinued in 1994 is it wasn't working very well. And so it's quite possible that that area that was served makes sense to serve again. But if we're going to serve it again, we probably want to do that in a different way. And that's why I keep going back to this blank sheet approach. We're not trying to get in a time machine and revisit the past, because the city has changed so much.
What would you like to see 18 months from now when this project is completed?
Well, I mean, one of the things about being a board member is we all have a ticking clock above our heads, that we know, just mayoral term limits, I'm not going to be on the board for more than another 3 years, at the most. I'd like to get this project to a point where we can make significant changes, where the public can ride a significantly improved system by the time we're off the board. So what we want to see here in 18 months will be a plan. It'll be a 5-year plan, and it will have a basic route structure, but it'll also have some variations. It will say, if we have more money, here's the routes we should add. If we have less money, here's where we should subtract. We need to be prepared for whatever the world throws at us. But we will have a plan, and then we will roll out that plan as quickly as we reasonably can.
This is a huge endeavor. Have other systems done this before?
It's actually interesting because very few have. There is a lot of inertia in transit. If you think about, there are bus routes in Houston that are where they are because there was a streetcar line on that street in the 1920s. And that inertia every system suffers from. There have been a couple of cities, San Francisco, Portland, both did fairly fundamental redos 20 years ago or more. But most of the cities that have done this are actually smaller cities. So I think this is actually a pretty unique endeavor, and I'm really proud of Houston, proud of my fellow board members. I'm proud of the staff and our stakeholders for really wanting to take this on.
Christophe, Houston's really a car culture. How do we get people to take a bus and take a train when they've got 2 or 3 cars in their driveway?
People say Houstonians love their cars, and yeah. Do Houstonians love their commute? I don't think they do. I don't talk to anybody who says my favorite part of the day is being stuck on traffic. So I think the reality is, and we've seen this very clearly, if we provide high quality transit, people will ride it. You look at the park and rides. 50% of the people who work downtown and live in the area served by the park and rides choose to ride the bus to work, even though that car is in their driveway every morning, because they like high quality transit. You look at our rail line and we get better ridership per mile than anybody else except Boston. If we provide good transit, Houstonians want to use it. So I want to get good transit close to more Houstonians because I know the demand is there.
So build it and they will come.
Well, they're there already. They're just waiting for us to provide a service that's good enough for them to want to use it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being with us, Christophe.
You are welcome.
That's all for this edition of Metro Matters. Until next time, be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and join the conversation on our blog at ridemetro.org. I'm Mary Sitt. Thanks for watching.